Welcome ladies and gentlemen to another casted game for Age of Empires 4, and today on the east side of this map, which is Prairie, we have got Demuslim representing Team Liquid in yellow as the Malians, and his opponent today, coming down with lightning and thunder, will be Thor playing in red as the French. The map being Prairie, a very open map, it has to be said. If you haven't seen this yet in Age of Empires 4, I mean, just take a look at the wood lines, just have a look, where are they, where's the wood, I don't know. It's so sparse and scarce on this map, and that's something really you have to consider in terms of your strategy. You get the feeling it's a super aggressive map, and what has to be said though for the Malians today, at least on this spawning, is it's pretty fortunate because they do invest a lot of wood into this gold mine, which is at the back for Demuslim. That is the key position that he would have wanted, having a nice safe-ish gold mine at the back. It means that the opponent has to wrap around and try and get around the sides of it. It takes a lot longer to do so, and so that's a nice starting kind of RNG spawn there for Demuslim. Thor playing as the French though will have that mobility with the knight, so can actually wrap around quite nicely with those knights if he has to, with the movement speed that he will have. And the French obviously pretty aggressive, can be a very nice civilization on open maps like this, which we'll see how the Malians cope with that with their Donsos. I suspect we'll be seeing a couple of those Donso units coming out for the Malians today. We'll see how it goes though, but Thor gonna have a tough job here against Demuslim. We don't know who Thor is. All we do know is that he has access to the preview update. Well, basically, it's not public update preview anymore. I suppose it's the private update preview. But essentially the latest build that will be used on the Red Bull Wololo Legacy main event, which I'm super hyped for, looking forward to in October. Later on this month in Castle Heidelberg, Germany, as we see the Mansa Quarry being the landmark of choice for Demuslim. Going with this choice means that it will get 75 gold per minute, and it can be toggled to stone instead if you so wishes. Be interested to see if there is any 2 town centre builds that use the Mansa Quarry toggled to stone. It will be taking quite a long time though, because it's only kind of the equivalent of, in fact it's less than 2 villages actually. A villager typically gathers about 40 resources per minute, depends what resource it is of course. But yeah, it's going to be less than 2 villagers equivalent, but it's a nice gold trickle, nice stone trickle that can come in there, as both players do look to head into that feudal age with the School of Cavalry, the landmark of choice for the French today, as expected. Very rarely see that Chamber of Commerce. It has to be said though, I mean, landmarks like the Malians trade and the Ottomans trade has been making a bit more of an appearance on certain maps. I suspect a map like Prairie is probably not the best one for it, although actually the markets are in nice positions for both players. Would have a nice trade route if it was. I don't think we're going to see the Chamber of Commerce all that soon, especially because you would have to forego the bonuses and the benefits of having the School of Cavalry, which is having those early knights out to harass your opponent. As Wheelbarrow is going to be coming in for the French as well. Thor has his build order obviously very nicely optimized, as we hear that new age up for the Malians. We'll be looking to put some production buildings. Will he be looking for a second town centre? We're probably a bit greedy at this point to go for a second town centre, so I suspect we'll see some units coming out soon. Just needs to get some a little bit more wood to be able to afford something, and we'll just see what he decides to do. Most likely to be a barracks, especially because the knights are probably going to be on the way soon. We shall see. It is indeed the barracks, maybe to get some Donzos out there on the field. Scout just harassing a couple of houses on the back of the base there. It looks like it's going to be 2 towns to play for the French, sending a couple of villagers to stone now. And Demuslim will see that, he'll be completely aware of that. You'll also see the amount of gold that's been mined. There's no more villagers on gold, so probably just 1 knight maximum, and then that'll be it really that he'll be facing up against. So Demuslim won't be too worried about that, and this is the idea about casting games. You can really learn about the strategy. Demuslim very purposefully, you can tell, is scouting that gold mine. He's checking, I'm sure he'll be checking how much gold is there. And you'll notice, well, only 300 gold or so has been mined. It means that his French opponent's only going to be able to produce 1 knight, and so that will guide him in terms of how many Donsos to make. He won't want to overcommit, and may even think about getting a second town centre himself. Going to send a villager to repair the house, or a little bit too late there. A little bit unfortunate. But the houses are relatively cheap, all things considered, for the Malians, but again, small things like that can spiral. Going for a handful of those Donsos, getting them upgraded as well to hardened. And I suspect with the information that Demuslim has, he knows that he's not going to be facing too many knights. He's probably expecting the second town centre popping out. And it looks like the Malians today may be opting for a one town centre build here. Because he's not on stone just yet, Demuslim. Going for another pit mine here on the right side. Getting that gold trickle in quite nicely now with that second pit mine up there. Keeping the Donsos at the back line. Where are those Donsos now? A couple on the front as well. If you get a couple of hits on the scout, this is quite a nice play by the Donsos. You can see they're throwing their javelins, or their, spears rather. And there is a bit of a cooldown, as you can see the javelin throw periodically against nearby units. We have to chuck another one of them on the knights. Oh, it doesn't actually happen though. So I think it happens. I think if you, this is an issue. I think if you click on a unit, it doesn't actually throw them. But if you A move, then it might indeed do so. Could potentially get another javelin throw. So there's a bit of micro capability. Yeah, you can see that. Look at that. See what's happening there? The Muslim there. I think he might have A moved or maybe just stopped his units. And then they automatically fire off. Get another hit. It's a very nice type of spearman-esque unit there. The Donso for the Malians. A couple of extra hits. Chivalry does come out though for the French. Those will heal up quite nicely. But yeah, Thor will be certainly putting ahead in the villager count. He's actually not that far ahead though. All things considered, he does have one town centre. That should be working faster than his opponent already, and is going to head over to the west side with the second town centre on the deer patch. Well, there's only 3 deer here, but he does have access to the boar there nicely. He's probably going to drag that boar across. And heading with a couple of more knights and some archers to back them up to try and take care of the Donsos. Interesting to see how much damage the Donsos can do against the ranged units. Each javelin, just an extra hit. Yeah, a lot of testing needs to be done with the Donsos. Fascinating units for the Malians. Might lose a villager here. Does indeed. And, not yet back on gold though. So looking to double down on the fuel age for now. Thor's going to be there for a while at least. Especially with the 2 town centre expansion. Look at the gold trickle coming in for Demuslim. Might need to drop a market to rebalance his economy. And if it does so, could potentially even think about going to the next stage a little bit faster than his opponent. But Demuslim will need to be careful about the lightning thunder guy here because 2 town centre French can spiral out of control sometimes. He's getting that boar now as well to really increase that food income. Of course, the Malians can't take advantage of the boar, being a civilization with Islamic traditions and the background that brings with the religious injections they have on food and certain food. You can take cattle though. Gonna get those cattle into the cattle ranches, building them nice and close to that pit mine. Maybe looking to get to the next stage with the Grand Fulani coral, which would boost the amount of food that the cattle bring in. We shall see. We shall see. He's not on the way to the castle age anytime soon just yet. Investing a lot in the economy. And we've noticed this with the Malians that it can be a bit slow to get going at the beginning, but once they do, once this cattle boom actually takes hold, they can look really strong in the mid to late game because that economy really starts to kick in. And don't forget, this is all passive food generation right here, right now. Despite not having 2 town centres, he's still getting, close to that 2 town centre mark in a way. The amount of food that's going to be gathering from these cattle ranches. Ooh, does kill a cattle now. I don't think that was an accident. Now he can actually harvest the food there if he so wishes. Well, this is super interesting. Wow, this is a super interesting game mechanic. I wonder if this cattle is still gathering food passively, whilst also gathering food, obviously with the villagers taking it. That would be super interesting to know. I mean, I don't think necessarily it's a good idea necessarily because of the walking time. But that is super interesting. No, indeed, I don't think it will be gathering because there's another cattle garrisoned in there. Might have been an accident. In any case, we're taking an engagement here on the front lines. Donsos and a couple of these veterans suffer on the archers. And the French actually under pressure here. The military numbers looking decent here for Demuslim. 18 to 14. And something you might be aware of is that I have actually blocked off the scores on the right side it does spoil the game just a little bit when you know the scores. And one thing else I actually should have done was change the positions of the players, but I'll figure out how to do that. And the top and the capture age overlay, it can be done. In any case, the Donsos and the veteran suffer there, moving towards that left side. Continues with the cattle. 11 minutes 20 seconds on the clock here on Prairie. Relatively slow start, actually, has to be said on this kind of open map. Both players go for that two-town, well, one player go for the two-town center push, play, and economy boom, and we'll see the cow boom is very real here for the Malians today. The veterans suffer tanking a lot of the damage from the archers. The veterans suffer an interesting unit. It's kind of halfway house between a knight and a horseman. It is still technically a heavy melee cavalry though. As you can see, it does have a quite high movement speed, cheaper cost, strong in melee combat, and of course countered by spearmen and crossbowmen. A cheaper knight, if you will. Does quite a lot of damage. They suffer take quite a lot of damage from the archers. Decent army number building up though for Thor. He's heading forward now. Double archery range here for the Malians, and looks like Thor's going to try and get some value here on the south. He's heading towards that position, but trouble is for the French is that the Malians have the defender's advantage. He's going to have units reinforcing, and looks like Thor is going to try and force a fight here, but Demuslim holding back just for now, wants to mass up a little bit more of a critical mass, and now he's going to dive in. This could be a problem for Thor, because Demuslim has the numbers, but more importantly, he has the defender's advantage. The veteran suffer going to tank a lot of the archers play. The Donsos getting huge amounts of value. I think Donsos are going to be picked apart by the archers, but a couple of the veteran suffer I think, no sorry, it won't be veteran because it's still in the feudal age. The Sopper needs to really go down on the archers. The trouble is they're not as tanky as you'd like. Doesn't have the ranged armor either there, Demuslim. Quite a few upgrades coming in for the French. He does have the archer iron undermesh. Not iron undermesh, sorry, steeled arrow. He does have steeled arrow for the archers, which will be working quite nicely. The Sopher are going to head towards there and snipe some of the archers. Spearmen coming up for the French. It's a mixed army composition here. If the Spearmen engage and take out the Sopher, that could be a problem for Demuslim. Looks to be the case. A couple of knights added into the mix, but the Donso will take care of those. The knights are engaging against the Donso. That's not what the French will want. And looks like the army in the right positions here for Demuslim, not so much for Thor. He has the Sopher on the archers, has the Donsos on the knights, and that's really not what the French will want here. The Donsos in the background getting a couple of throws off on the archers as well as they try and retreat. And Demuslim pushing this back, and this might start to snowball here. Looks like Demuslim's heading back, wants to kind of regroup a little bit, you feel. Maybe we're getting ready for that castle age. The trouble for Thor is he's spent a lot of food and gold, and is nowhere near that castle age. The same cannot be said for the Malians. Got plenty of food coming in. Almost 1,000 food per minute, and this is due to the cattle. Make no mistake, this passive generation of food is really what's kicking the economy here for Demuslim. And really, the French, he needs to be putting a lot more pressure early on in the game. It doesn't feel like two town centre play here for the French is viable against the Malians, because it gives the Malians time to set up this food economy, to set up this passive food economy with the cattle boom. Now that cattle boom is really going to translate into a full-scale military force and possible age up to the castle age. So interesting style of play. I'm not entirely sure how viable two town centre play for the French is against the Malians. If the Malians go one town centre play, that's for sure. But we're learning the civilizations, we're learning the new metas, and it's an interesting game to showcase actually. Interesting game to learn because we've seen a lot of Ottomans versus Malians. And so I'm really excited to explore the new civilizations versus the vanilla, stock, original, OG civilizations such as the French. Now there is the Grand Filani Coral. We explained that that was likely to be the case. It will be increasing the cattle food production by 20 per minute. And that's really going to bolster the food income even more. Almost at 1200 already. And that's going to get even bigger with this. And it's going to get up to next stage very, very soon. And that's going to be a problem for Thor, because Thor is absolutely miles away from the castle age. And this tech up for the malians means that it should be relatively aggressive. And we've called it before where, you know, when you age up, that can be when you're most vulnerable. But to be honest with you, at this stage, the Muslim doesn't look vulnerable at all. And this is in part because of the large standing army he has in the feudal age. As Sofa there. Even if Thor attacks now, the Muslim is likely to be able to hold for quite some period of time. Static defenses, walls going up on the south area, getting protected by the army as well. And the Muslim playing this very nicely and methodically. Does have a lower military count and does have a lower army value, but he'll be able to hold quite nicely against the knights with the Donsos. The archers in behind as well, and the archers are going to be almost wrapped around by the knights, but the knights have to head back because the spears are brought back into position here for Demuslim. And not enough cavalry though you feel there for Demuslim. Does have a couple of Sofa, perhaps not enough. The Donsos engaging the knights, the archers in the background. Looks like a good fight for Demuslim because the knights will be engaging against the Donsos, although there's not enough Donsos left. I take it back, it's going to be a good fight for the French. The Donso numbers really weakened because of the archers in the behind for the French, and French should mop this up. A couple of veteran archers there, still low for Demuslim. Going to be taken out by the knights. The knights charge in, take out a lot on that charge attack, and this is going to be a nice cleanup for the French. Demuslim down to 9 army, but the key bit of detail is that if Demuslim can hold on, he's getting imported armor for the Sofa. It's going to be increasing the production value of his units, the military value of them, and if he can pump them out now, he'll be able to hold. Does have the economy to do so. Look at that, 1,000 food, almost 600 gold, but he needs to produce quickly, because those knights are going to dive in, get some eco value. This is a window of opportunity for the French. We talked about how when you age up that's when you're vulnerable, and actually the French did have what they needed in that fight to pay a little bit of payback damage. Have to try and torch down the production buildings. That's going to be painful really for the Malians, because he needs to produce, and of course he won't be able to if those get taken down. But the trouble is for the French, he doesn't have siege on the field here. Does he have siege engineering? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. He doesn't. He's getting it now. Doesn't necessarily have the timing on this. Thor getting to that castle age though himself now, so we'll be able to upgrade his units. Let's just see what he went up for. Here's the Royal Institute. We'll have access to cheaper upgrades and Imperial Age upgrades with the Royal Bloodlines, which is now queuing up, I believe. Nope, not just yet. He's going to get the veterancy on his knights first. Makes sense. But don't forget, the Malians don't actually get access to crossbows, so he may need to go into Musafadi warriors. We may need to go for veteran Sofa himself and just try and mass as many as he can. We'll see what he decides to do. Military numbers starting to build up again for Demuslim. Thor just letting up on the pressure. He's waiting for his upgrades, but I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like he's missing a window of opportunity here. He didn't want to take advantage. He didn't want to be pressured by the defender's advantage, I suspect. And he's heading back, going to get those all-important key upgrades. The veteran Royal Knights, when they are upgraded with things like Bloodlines, they are a fearsome force. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the scores are, but I can tell you they are very even at the moment. And it's understandable, as you can expect from how the game has panned out. Thor holding his own. We don't actually know who Thor is. I suspect it's probably one of the qualified players for Red Bull Wololo Legacy, coming up against Demuslim. The army is starting to build up here for both players. Maybe looking to take a big engagement. You can see the army number is actually very, very nice for Thor. 48 versus 41. And these aren't just any old army. You can see the army value there, 6,500. It's because these guys are veteran Royal Knights. Spec Bloodlines is coming as well. He's going to sort the wood line. Now the problem for Demuslim, he doesn't have that much safe wood once he loses this. Let's just check what he's got. Got this actually at the back. He can still take that. And he might need to. Pushed off of one wood line. We talked about how wood is a bit of a problem on this map at times. But Thor, look at the villager count, looking pretty spectacular for Thor, has to be said. Holy moly, 1,000 villagers. I take it back about the town centre play not being viable. It certainly is if you can pull the game to this late stage. And that's what's being shown here. I'm not sure if this cow boom is enough to match that 2 town centre play, to be honest, because there's a lot of villagers. 50 extra villagers for the French, and that's going to translate into military, as you can start to see. It's happening now. 58 military. And it's all about timings, this game. This is what I love about the asymmetry in Age of Empires 4. You have certain times where you peak in terms of your power spikes, and looks like Demuslim is slowly on a timer here, potentially. Might take an engagement now, though. If you take an engagement now, that could be quite meaningful. Here's some relics being chimed and picked up. Looks like it's going to be for the French. You can see at the bottom, it does already have 1 relic in play. Looks like Demuslim's picking one up as well, and it might be an engagement here, big engagement to be had. But we see Thor just biding his time, letting chivalry do its work, heal up those knights, and I think he saw that. I think he saw the army coming forward, and he fancies his chances, perhaps. Don't blame him. There is a mangonel on the field for Thor as well. That could get a lot of damage because there's a lot of infantry, a lot of archers, Donsos there on the field. Probably says Donsos will do great work against the Knights. And we shall see possibly an engagement here. And it'll be interesting to see if the mangonel gets a shot off. Doesn't quite do it. The Knights charge in. Donsos there to push them back. Soffer there as well. The archers on the back line. The mangonel does get unpacked. Mangonel gets hit. Is it going to be a big one? Not too big. The Knights being microed back. The Archer's going to focus down on the Donsos. The Mangonel shot gets up again. And it feels like the French will want to delay this fight as long as possible because the Mangonel needs to get more shots off. Mangonel gets a big shot on the Archers on the back line, but there's nothing focus firing on the Archers on the back line. Donsos doing great work, and you get the feeling the Donsos are the MVP here, pushing back a lot of the Knights, and it's mostly a melee fight. With the Archers here for the French doing a good amount of damage. The Donsos are really depleting in numbers. This could be a French victory here because the Knights are now going to focus on the Archers. Now Demuslim is going to struggle. The 2 town centre is paying off here for Thor. The military has been translated because of that better economy, and now Thor could push forward with the Knights and Archers, and Demuslim might not be able to hang on here. Will he be able to? We shall see, because his economy is not as strong, and the Knights here in huge amounts of numbers. These are premium units. They are quite low on HP, but they can hold their own. A offensive keep coming in for Thor. Lightning and thunder coming down on that keep, and if that goes up, that will give him a staging ground to push on in this fight. And this is a problem for Demuslim. It's going to need a response here. So we're certainly learning about this matchup. The 2 town centre play working for the French because he's delayed the game for as long as he can, and he's needed to, and now it's paying off. It's paying dividends. You feel like the 1 town centre play for the Malians against the 2 town centre play for the French has a window of opportunity. Demuslim wasn't able to take advantage of it. Demuslim certainly one of the players very proficient in the late game. And that's where this game is heading towards. The keep actually is relocated towards the south a bit more. Demuslim trying to deny the keep, but the Mangonel getting good value against the Spearmen, the Donsos rather. The Knights charging in against the Donso. I'm not sure that's a good fight for the French though. The Mangonel shot does get off on the Archers, but the Mangonel not doing all that amazing amount of damage. The Knights take a good trade. Donso's not enough here. Knights, again, look at these Knights coming in. These are fresh Knights entering the fight, entering the battle. The movement speed really paying off. The keep will go up, and this could be the end for Demuslim and the Malians here. Keep will certainly go up, and that's a great staging ground now for the Knights to really attack from. Knights and the Archers here. 52 military versus 16. You feel this is the fight that Demuslim can no longer win. As the second keep comes in, the pressure is going to be there. The food economy is going to be dwindling here for Demuslim. The passive gold and food income, for the cows not going to be free from pressure because they are being pressured now by the Archers. Mangonel heading forward as well. Demuslim holding on, but for how long I'm not so sure. And there it is. There's the tap out for Demuslim. Thor reigns supreme on Prairie. The lightning comes down and thunders the Malians with the French victory. Hope you guys enjoyed this casted game, and if you did, do give it a thumbs up. Take care, and see you on another casted game perhaps.